Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and all our Facebook viewers. Yeah, so welcome to the UTM Research Webinar Seminar Series. So I'm Dr. Siti Hajar Osman from School of Computing, Faculty of Engineering, UTM Johor Bahru. So this morning we will have a program that we call as a Conversation with Security Practitioner. This program are organized by the Information and Assurance Security Research Group, ISRG, the Cybersecurity Threat Intelligence CITIL Lab, the Cybersecurity Malaysia, CSM, and School of Computing, Faculty of Engineering, UTM Johor. So it is my pleasure to be a moderator for this morning session on conversation with security practitioner. So inshallah this morning, we will listen a sharing knowledge from our guest expert, Mr. Adli Wahid from APNIC. So APNIC is actually the Asia Pacific Network Information Center in Brisbane, Australia. So thank you so much, Mr. Adli, for joining us today. And Mr. Adli is currently virtually from the land down under, Australia. So I predict the weather in Australia is winter season now. Okay, so inshallah we will listen sharing knowledge for about 1 hour from 10 a.m. until 11 a.m. So before we continue with Mr. Adli, I would like to invite the head of Information Assurance and Security Research Group, Dr. Associate Professor Dr. Anazida Zainal, for giving some opening remarks on our research series. Hand over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hajar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, the 1 month plus planning has finally came to its end, and we managed to launch our In Conversation with Security Practitioner webinar series. For the month of August, we have 3 series, and today is our first series. Alhamdulillah, we managed to get the well-known security experts, and we thank them for accepting our invitations. Basically, the purpose of this program is to give exposure to any individuals who are interested to pursue their careers in computer security, how to prepare into the security industry. Also, even if you don't plan to step into the security pathway, it will give you an exposure. How is it like to be a security practitioner? So on behalf of School of Computing, Faculty of Engineering, Information Assurance and Security Research Group, and also Cybersecurity Malaysia, I would like to welcome all of our viewers to our In Conversation with Security Practitioner program. Thank you, Mr. Adli, for accepting our invitation. Now, I would like to pass over to Dr. Siti Hajar to moderate the session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Anazida. So welcome back. So our next session, inshallah, I will do some introduction to our guest speaker, Mr. Adli Wahid. Okay, so first of all, we are absolutely thrilled you could make it this morning. So Mr. Adli Wahid received his bachelor degree in Bachelor of Commerce and specialized on Management Information System and Human Resource from University of Ottawa, Canada on 1998. And then after that, he pursued his study on year 2000, received his master degree in Computer Science, specialized in Software Engineering from University Technology Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. And then after that, he continued his first job as a lecturer in IIUM, International Islamic University Malaysia, from September 1998 until 2006. So I think around 8 years. So in the Kuliah of Information and Communication Technology, IIUM. During his job in IIUM, Mr. Wahid has already become the head and department of information system in 2002, and also the deputy director of IT division in IIUM. And then Mr. Wahid continued his career after that as a vice president in cybersecurity Malaysia from September 2006 until August 2012. So he became the vice president of the cybersecurity response services division, and also beside that, as a head of Malaysia Computer Emergency Response Team, or MyCERT. And then after that, he continued his career in the Bank of Tokyo, Mitsubishi UFJ Singapore from September 2012 until December 2013, as the manager specific on the cybersecurity. So during his role, he's responsible for various tasks of security management in Bank of Tokyo. For example, like reviewing the BTMU cybersecurity framework, NIST cyber security framework, ISO 27K, and also other IT security risk management practice at the BTMU branch office across Asia Pacific. Okay, and then from February 2014 until now, so Mr. Adli is actually the senior internet security specialist in APNIC, Brisbane, Australia. So after this, inshallah, Mr. Adli will explain a lot of his what we call task, as a senior internet security specialist, inshallah. Okay, so with broad experience for maybe more than 20 years, I believe that Mr. Adli has a lot of sharing about what we call as a security specialist today. Okay, inshallah. I think we can go to our first questions to Mr. Adli, inshallah. Yeah. So if we look at our at the ends of the network, so there is internet users, and currently we have about 3 billion internet users around the world, which is nearly half of the world's internet user are in the Asia Pacific, which is we can consider that as the fastest growing regions of internet user. When I refer to the internet user distribution in the world 2020, we can see that particularly in Asia Pacific, so the growth between 2000 to 2020, it shows that the growth in Asia for the world internet usage and population is 2,109, which is a quite huge number. So this poses a huge challenge to cybersecurity, I believe. So my questions is, what are the interesting element or maybe component or characteristic about cybersecurity? Inshallah.
All right. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Hajar. First of all, it is a pleasure to be here with this program, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity to have myself to join the discussion on a very interesting, to me, at least for me, it's interesting on cybersecurity. Now back to your question. Yes, security is a very interesting and emerging field, particularly in our region, the Asia Pacific region. As you can see, that the maturity of internet technologies and adoption is not the same across the region. For example, you can see differences in some advanced countries like Japan versus maybe an emerging economy like Timor-Leste, for example. But there is one thing that a lot of people share in common when it comes to cybersecurity, and that is the safety of information assets and safety of users on the internet when they use internet technology for business, for learning, or for socializing. And this is where I think the understanding of security or cybersecurity becomes important, not only from the fundamental knowledge perspective, So as many participants might be from the computer science faculty, you might be familiar with operating systems and networking application and the need to secure those things, but also on the practical side of things. For example, as a user who is using the internet, they hear about cybersecurity, but they are already using that piece of technology. So the challenge is how to get them safe and secure when they are online, because now a lot of information, maybe personal information or their privacy, might be exposed. Similarly, if you are an organization, there is a lot of assets that you need to protect, right? Your information assets. This could be, information related to your business that you need to secure from competitors, or internal information that you share with internally. You don't want this information to be leaked out because of confidentiality issues, or confidentiality might be exposed. And at the same time, you are also concerned about making the services available all the time, because now your business rely on the fact that your services is always available. People can reach the service. They have paid money for it. So there is also a lot of interesting things going on there, especially from the enterprise perspective. Like, we need to secure our information, we need to secure our assets, we need to make sure our services are available. And last but not least, I think from the national perspective, there is also concerns from those who are running the country to make sure that the citizens are safe, right? That they are not, exposed to maybe cyber attacks like malware or cyber criminals, and the need to make sure that people don't abuse the internet to attack maybe critical infrastructure or to commit fraud. Right. So there's a lot of different things to this discussion, not just from the technical perspective, which is very important, but also from the governance perspective, from a risk management perspective, and also from safety, individual safety perspective.
Okay. Okay. So as we realize that security specialists become more crucial as cloud computing and business reliance more on the technology increase, yeah. So we can see that this poses a huge challenge to the cybersecurity. Okay, so my question is, what are the foundations or the fundamental knowledge, for someone who wants to get into the security and become an expert? So based on
yeah. That's a fully loaded question there, I think, and something very important for people to pause and think about. I think, before they decide what to do in the future, especially if you're thinking about joining the cyber industry, for example. Yeah. So one is the definition of an expert. To me, an expert is someone who is good at what he or she is doing, right? And you can do this, you can become an expert if you continually do something, and find ways to better yourself at doing it, right? So for example, if you are a chef, a cook, you become an expert in cooking because you do this every day. And you find ways to make it better and faster and more efficient compared to someone who was just starting. So that's one thing. But when it comes to cybersecurity, it's kind of tricky sometimes to say that, you need to learn A, B, and C to become an expert, because at the end of the day, it's actually a mix of various knowledge and experience. The world of cyber, it's a bit tricky because you are always dealing with something new, right? So there is this aspect of continuous learning, right? Now, having said that, very dynamic. A few years ago, I think when I was teaching security when I was in UIA, there was no such thing as cloud computing,
Yes,
we hear about virtualization. In fact, I then use it, but now cloud computing is something else. It's totally different than what we used to deal with in the past. But having said all of that, I think fundamental knowledge of certain technologies is very important, and having certain capabilities. Now, I would like to say that if you are interested to go in security, then you should have very sound, very solid understanding of how things work, right? How things work at the, for example, operating systems level, right? Because this would be the core of a lot of things. Many devices or IoTs, even IoTs, they will have an operating system. An operating system give access to, grant privileges, manage users, manage file systems, right? And this will be an important element in security. So that's one. Secondly, I think on the network side of things, because at the end of the day, the whole internet is a bunch of networks connecting together, right?
Indeed.
So very good understanding of networking is a big deal to me. If you want to go into this field, you kind of have to understand how things work at that particular level.
Yes.
At the same time, I think there must be a general appreciation of application, what application is, what they do, and how they can expose people to security problems. And this is where you have to understand application-specific knowledge. So if you are a web developer, you must know how the web works. Or if you're coding in Python or PHP, understand what are the security features in those languages that you can implement. And on top of that, things like encryption. Maybe you don't write the encryption algorithm. Somebody will have to write that at the end of the day, but we'll be using a lot of that in our day-to-day job because we need to secure data that is at rest or when they are traveling or where are they in the processing. So it's hard to tell people, you have to do all of this and then get a job in cybersecurity because it's not possible. But I would emphasize, the need to maybe, take your time to learn and learn deeply. And at the same time, never stop learning, with, technologies, new technologies, and then also try to benefit from books, from communities, to enrich your experience.
Yeah.
So that's
a desire to learn new
the
things.
desire to learn. I think that's the key thing in this field.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are the special qualities expected by organization? For someone who wants to work in security field.
Yeah.
Normally, the organization aspect. What are the specific quality from someone who wants to further this working on security?
Okay. I think so.
Beside the experience and so on.
Beside the experience, So of course, number one is to have the right skills for the right role, and this is where also in security there are many different roles, right? That you can do that supports the security needs for the organization. For example, you might be an auditor, right, for information systems that organization have, or you could be an incident responder that does investigation and do this threat hunting and secure organization from being attacked. You might also be a security engineer that just configure firewalls or network appliances and so on and so forth. But bottom line is that first of all, you must have the right skill. An organization is actually looking for someone who can actually do the job, right? Or maybe you cannot do the job on day one, but you have the desire to learn how to do the work and get it done, right? So getting things done and ability to learn and adapt quickly to the needs of the organization, I think that's one of the qualities that people are looking for. Yes, I think maybe what you learn matters definitely in university or you learn on your own, but at the same time you need someone to get the job done, because I think that's the bottom line for many places, right? I don't care, some places will say, I don't care how you do it, you just need to get it done, right? So we can achieve our goals. But also something extra in security, I feel that sometimes are not communicated well with those who aspire to be in the field, is this concept of trust. I am going to let you touch the most critical part of my network or in my system. I am going to let you deal with cases of breach and fraud. So you must be somebody trustworthy, right? You will have perhaps elevated privilege in the system, right? So there is a saying that who is watching the watcher? You are the watcher of my network, but who's watching you? So if you are not ethical, if you're not trustworthy, and of course if you have a religion, if you're a Muslim, then we have all this to guide us, to make sure that we always do the right thing. We don't abuse our power on a network, or access to a certain system. So that component is also very, very important. And it is therefore quite important as well to understand that for some roles in cybersecurity, organizations sometimes do a background check to make sure that you have not been involved in any criminal activities, or maybe, you know, the role that you will be in is it's very fragile, such that if you suddenly, you know, change hats, which means that today you are a nice person, but maybe you will have some problems in the future, financial problems, whatever, right? And that might entice you to do something illegal or criminal. So sometimes organizations look in those things as well, those aspects, because yes, the security person will be entrusted on access to certain kinds of information, access to certain parts of the network, and so on. So that's one. And last but not least, I think, other than trust, is this idea of continuous learning, where it's not just you learn on your own, but you learn together as a team. So so teamwork is normal, and something that many organizations will put you in, because there's so much work to do in security, right? So it's not just you doing your thing, but you maybe communicating with another user and help them to be more secure, doing awareness training, for example, or us talking to the IT people to improve the application security, right? Or before they put something in production, before they put something live, I'm gonna test it to make sure that all the holes are covered, or vulnerabilities removed, right? And that requires trust, teamwork, but also a certain level of communication, so that, you know, I'm not going to insult you, I'm not going to blame you, but I'm helping you to secure our organization or our, you know, our company.
Okay, Mr. Adli, we want to a little bit know about EPNIC. EPNIC. Okay. So I make some observation to EPNIC websites. So based on the EPNIC, for those who wants to know what is EPNIC, EPNIC is actually one of the 5 regional internet registries, RIR, that distribute and manage internet number resources in the Asia Pacific region. So there are lots of programs run by EPNIC. So another 5 regional IRR is EPNIC is for the Asia Pacific region, and then we can see that we have a PRINIC for Africa. ERIN cover Canada, US, and also some Caribbean nations. LATNIC for Latin America, some Caribbean nations, and also the number 5 is for RAP NCC, for Europe, Russia, Middle East, and Central Asia. So basically, we know that EPNIC is not for-profit organization. So it distributes IP address and AS number to its member. Okay, so maybe others also wants to know, what are the examples of the international collaborations and community in security services offered by
Okay, so before I answer that question, since you mentioned EPNIC, the Regional Internet Registry, so it's also interesting to understand how the internet is being governed, right? So UTM is actually a member of EPNIC, because UTM is, in essence, a network operator for the UTM community. So you have to get IP address and AS number, and then connect this network to the rest of the world. And many other universities in Malaysia is also our member. Now, having said that, engagement at the local level and international level is very critical in doing cybersecurity, and there are many reasons for this. One is that there are many different kind of knowledge in security itself, right? So you have a community that are interested in just web application security, right? There are communities that do incident response and investigation, for example. There are communities that is interested in making a very good cybersecurity framework for everybody, and so on and so forth. So there are many communities like that, and I think if you are going to be in this field, it's always good to look at what are the communities out there that are of interest to you, so that you can learn from others and participate in some of the discussion and some of the initiatives that they do. I can share with you the ones that I'm active in. One is an organization called FIRST, the Forum of Incident Response and Security Teams. This is a community of security response team around the world, So security response teams tend to exist either in organizations like banks or maybe Google, Facebook, they have their own teams, but also security response team at the national level. You mentioned earlier that I work for MICERT, Malaysia Computer Emergency Response Team. So this community actively and proactively share information with one another. And the idea is very simple. One is that we don't want to reinvent the wheel. If somebody have gone through the pain learning about how to do something, then I can just learn quickly from them instead of me having to train myself in something totally new and need more time to do it. But at the same time, sharing of experience is very critical, because if someone have seen a new piece of malware in, let's say, Brazil, right, this is of interest to me because this piece of malware may come to Malaysia or Australia or wherever, right? So I am being alerted in advance. This is coming your way, right? Or have a look at this. This is something new that we haven't seen with before, and here's some details about it. And I can use this information to then evaluate my network or my systems or my users to see if we've been hit by the same thing, or we can prepare ourselves in advance. So that community is important because we enhance one another. We strengthen one another by doing this. But of course, there are other types of organization. I mentioned about OWASP. I do a lot of web development in the past, and OWASP, has a lot of activities. They have chapters. I think there is a Malaysian chapter as well, and they make tools, right, for you to use. And if you want to become a pen tester, so plenty of documentation. And I think it's something that it's available, and if you don't take advantage of it and you want to go into the field, you should go ahead and have a look. The other community that maybe I will touch a bit is on the law enforcement side. So I do some work with law enforcement agencies as well, because law enforcement, when it comes to security, they care about the actors, the people who are trying. Oops.
Okay. Maybe we have some. Okay, maybe we have some technical issue from the Mr. Adli part, I think. Yeah, so we just wait maybe a few minutes, a few seconds maybe. Okay, besides that, so for our Facebook viewer, if you have any questions, you may post into our Facebook webinar chat comments. Inshallah, I will forward it to the Mr. Adli soon. Okay, inshallah. Okay, basically we already have one question from Haris Ehesh. So you're waiting for Mr. Adli. Okay, for those who also wants to know about Epinic, so Epinic can also be what we call be served through https www.epinic.net. So Epinic is actually the community where any interested party can participate openly in developing policy for managing and distributing IP address. Okay, Alhamdulillah, Mr. Adli. Okay, Mr. Adli, we have one question from our Facebook viewers. Okay, so maybe we can, you can direct answer that questions. So is there a place for someone with business analytic knowledge in this area?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I can give you one example where analytical capabilities is very important. These days, there is a lot of people establish security operations center, or there are companies who offer managed security service to organizations. And essentially what they do is get all the logs, all the information about a network, about systems in one place, and use that to detect threats, and also understand, if there is any anomalies or cybersecurity issues within those things. So definitely, this is no longer just the ability of maybe configuring a firewall, but we are processing loads and loads of information, and somebody with the knowledge of how to synthesize those information, simplify, make queries, indexing information becomes critical. So yes, definitely, that's one of the core skills these days, I think, for someone who's doing work as a security analyst.
It is extremely important, yeah, for cybersecurity. Yeah.
Yes.
Besides the business analytic, the data mining experience, and others. Okay. Which is in your opinion among the 3 elements, the degree, the certifications, and also the experience is important in this security specialist career?
Yeah, so the short answer is there is no right or wrong answer here, or approach to this, because I think everything has a role. To me, a degree is important because this is normally where people get foundational knowledge of something. Yeah, and it's being delivered in a structured way, right? So and to me, I find my foundational years in the university, although I wasn't really studying for security back then, I was a business student. But I took the opportunity to attend some of the computer science courses and other technical courses that I didn't register for initially, to learn about the subject matter and to find the resources that was used in those courses, right? So I think a degree is of help, but also do know that a degree alone is sometimes not sufficient. It's not the only thing that people look at. Degree is definitely one thing, and there are some organizations somehow in Malaysia or elsewhere where the salary scheme is tied to the paper that you have, right? So if you have a degree, you can earn a certain level, masters at a different level, and so on and so forth. So it does matters at the end of the day. But certification can be useful as well, but I always look at certification as if you need something very specific or niche, right? Something very deep, then this is something that certification tend to offer. So if, for example, I need to know how to operate a Cisco device, and then I probably will have to go for a certification that does that, and it will say that, okay, from now on he is certified to manage Cisco routers. Now there is a catch here, because maybe when you work for someone, they don't have Cisco routers, right? So if you invest money, because certifications are also not cheap, if you invest in money now to do Cisco certification, then you better find a place where they use Cisco routers, because otherwise that knowledge that you have, that investment that you made, will not be useful, right? So I always believe that certification is something that you should wait when you get the job and the company pay for you to get it, right? Because they know that you need that skill to manage their infrastructure, and therefore by right they should be the one who is training you. Now, I'm not saying that if you have certification, this will not make you at an advantage position, but not everybody can afford certification from day one because it involves money, right? So so that's one thing. The other thing, you must also be aware that when you look at job advertisement, and I encourage people, if you want to go into cybersecurity from now on, start looking at the job description or the requirements that people want for different roles, because sometimes I can say I want a pen tester, but if you look at the requirement, they want everything, right? They want you to do this and that. So you can then assess yourself whether or not you are ready, and you can see what is maybe the most sought after certification that is out there. And I think this helps you to plan at least, and to maybe go deep into it. But bottom line, I feel that at the end of the day, paperwork is one thing, but also the ability to do the work and also to learn, right? I think very mature organization who is hiring people have very I would say very reasonable expectation, right? If you're new, just graduating, I don't expect you to know to be able to know everything. Even if you have worked for 20 years, I will not expect you to know everything, right? But if you have the attitude and the aptitude to learn new things, and we can benefit from your experience and your ability to learn things quickly, I think we will definitely hire you. So I think there's a mix of that. So there is no one thing matters more than the other, right? But also, like I said earlier, certification has a huge cost to it, attached to it, and sometimes it can influence in getting a role within an organization. And maybe one final thing, when I reflect about how I used to study and what people are doing now to study, I think things are changing because I can see within the cybersecurity industry, people who do not go through the route of the traditional way of getting knowledge, which means that they don't go to uni, they don't go to university, and what they do is they prove their skills, right? They may take some courses here and there online, maybe EDX or Udemy and all those places, and they proactively started working in something, right? For example, they build open source software and they participate in the community, or they do bug bounty. They do bug bounty for big companies, finding bugs and get paid for that. So they use that in their resume, right? So that I've discovered a critical vulnerability in Microsoft product. So sometimes that means that can say more than saying, hey, I have a master's in computer science, software engineering, maybe. So I think be reasonable in your expectation, and also try to understand what are the expectations and options that you have as well to elevate yourself in the eyes of employers if you want to work for employers.
Okay, inshallah, I think we invite Mr. Adli. Maybe Mr. Adli wants to share some slide related to your security activities that you already involved in past. So I hand over to Mr. Adli to maybe show some photos related to his security activities, inshallah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I've got some photos of some of my activities. I was planning to just maybe tell a story from the photos, not so much to present anything.
Maybe others also wants to know what are the your daily activities. Currently
Okay, I can do that. Yeah. So if we can get those slides up. Somehow. Let me see.
Inshallah.
Yeah. And this is
inshallah.
So are the slides up, or because I cannot see it from here?
We are waiting for the
Okay. All right.
Delay.
Yeah. Okay, so I recognize that there are some questions in the comments. I will answer the questions or give feedback on those after I share some photos. Okay, so I've worked in different settings. I've worked for the government agencies. I work for university. I work for a bank, and now I work for a regional internet organization. So I thought maybe some people normally will wonder, like, what do you actually do in your day-to-day work? So I think some photos will help to explain some of that, not all. So the first photo here is when I was working at Malaysia CERT, Cybersecurity Malaysia. I can't remember when this exactly, maybe 2011 or 2010-ish. So we had an event here. It's called X-Maya. This was a cyber drill, cybersecurity exercise for critical infrastructure organization. So you can imagine in Malaysia, have a definition of what is critical infrastructure, and I think there's maybe 10 or 11 sectors, and oil and gas, energy, telecom, hospitals, and so on and so forth. And every year we have this event where we simulate a security incident to test for preparedness and see how they respond, and then see if there's any gaps in security procedures or policies, and see if there's any opportunity for us to collaborate moving forward. So my CERT was tasked, and these are all my friends there. My CERT was tasked to build this simulation, right? So because we have a lot of experience dealing with breaches, security incidents, we normally take some real cases and sort of replay them, and then from there get all the participants to do their analysis and then give us feedback. How did you do? What did you do to analyze this? And we can then share this across the sectors. And this is not a competition like who, because there's no winners or losers here. It's how you improve yourself from security perspective. So that's one of the fun things that I used to do, and I kind of missed those days as well. Next photo.
We want to look at what are the vulnerability and so on, right?
Yes, what are the vulnerabilities? And then people normally will have a lot of questions because not everybody will have experience in that security incident. So this photo is a bit blurry because it was kind of from the old days where cameras were not that great. And I think we don't even have phones on our cameras at those times. So this was my first international training in incident response. And there's a friend of mine who probably will be speaking next week or the week after, Mr. Mahmoud. He's in that photo there. And this training was held in Cambodia. What's interesting about this training is that the people who attended the training were going to set up a national security response team for their own country. And the participants were from Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Myanmar, the CLMV countries. And it was my first ever, I think, international training. So it was a lot of lessons learned from that experience. But also at the same time, fast forward 10 years later, some of these people who are in this class are some of my best friends. Until today, we keep in touch. We still share a lot of knowledge, and some of them have also done training and share the experience with building other teams across the region. Okay, next photo.
Okay.
All right, so this is a training that we did in Egypt. So Malaysia cert was one of the earliest cert even in the world. Malaysia was one of the countries that had a national cybersecurity response team, and many countries from time to time contact us for us to come and share our experience and help them build the cert. I thought this was interesting because it was in Egypt, so they were in the process of developing Egypt cert, and that's not me in the photo. It was another colleague, and it was a very interesting experience as well because you can see that the need for security is pretty much the same everywhere, right? So whatever you gain, or whatever you learn in security is actually applicable globally, really, right? And that's an advantage for us because the language of cyber is kind of universal, right? And people really understand threats the same way, whether you are in Malaysia or in Egypt or in Laos, we kind of talk the same language and people get it, right? So whatever you gain or learn is useful everywhere, I would say, especially if there is internet connection there. Next, yeah.
Yeah, before this, I also heard about the OIC cert and something like that.
Yes, yeah. Right, correct. Yeah, so that I think after doing a few of the certs from the OIC countries, Egypt, I think then we went to do maybe Pakistan and a few other places. Then the OIC cert was established so that we can have more regular communication and exchange of information, especially threat sharing. This next slide is from my more recent work at APNIC. So APNIC, we cover the whole Asia Pacific region. So when I joined APNIC in 2014, we learned that there are still many countries who do not have a national cert, and they wanted to have these capabilities, right? So this was in Tonga. So we do a lot of interaction with the smaller island countries in the Pacific. So Tonga, Samoa, Papua New Guinea. So this was in 2015, I think. Also very interesting in terms of country size. Definitely way smaller than many of the countries that we all know, but the need is there, right? They were computerizing everything, putting everything on the internet, the web, getting citizens to use online facility. And not only knowledge in those areas becomes important, right? But also security becomes a concern. Because the first thing that people asked was, how do we know that we are safe? How do we know that when we put things online or we put things in digitized form, these are not now accessible to criminals, for example, right?
Yes.
So this was in Tonga, right? Next. Again, similar story here in Papua New Guinea, right? Not very far away from Malaysia, even also Australia. But they are also at that stage where, okay, everything is cyber now. Everything is talking about cyber. We need to do security, but what does it really mean to do security, right? Because it's a vague terminology when you say cybersecurity. But what specific area in security are you doing? So then we can have discussions about strategies, about work on the ground. How do we facilitate communication and exchange of information between different groups, ISPs, law enforcement, government, maybe the law, on the law side of things as well. So question would be something like, do you need a cyber law to be in place before we have security capabilities? Or how do we do this, right? Or how do we do monitoring? What does monitoring means? Where does privacy comes into play, right? If I'm monitoring everything, then this can lead to abuse of privacy as well, right? So how do we draw the line? What's the limit, right?
Yeah, because sometimes we have a misconception among what we call staff in cybersecurity. Right?
That's right. And nowadays people are asking things like, what about fake news? Is that a cybersecurity thing, or is that different, right?
Yes.
How do we? So there's a lot of things that if you are in cybersecurity industry, there's a lot of questions you have to answer. So I think that's why you have to kind of enrich your knowledge into different areas as well, not just technical and cyber. Maybe I think 2 more photos. I can go quickly. Yeah. So this was in Bhutan. This was last year. This was specifically a web application security training. It's very interesting that you can see that everyone is wearing a traditional costume when they come and do the training. Bhutan is probably one of the places that is kind of difficult to get to because of I think they put some limitation how many visitors can come to the country, but definitely a beautiful country if you have a chance to visit. But this was specific to web application, and this is an agency there organizing a web security training for those who are doing web development, and not just those who are writing codes, but also system administrators who will be hosting those web application online. So to understand the threats, to understand what are the best practice in coding, so that you don't introduce the different kinds of web application security problems, cross-site scripting, SQL injection. So getting them to understand that, so that when they're coding, they are fully aware of these threats and how to not introduce them in the code. Because the idea is, if you put something live and there is a security problem, it'll be very expensive to fix. So it's cheaper to not introduce problems in the first place rather than to fix it later, right? And I think this is a very common understanding that people in the security world have. Do not release something buggy in production, because it can be costly to you or to your users or to your security, right?
We need to implement what we call as a secure software development.
Yes. So that's where secure software development comes into play.
Common SDLC.
And I also find that sometimes people who are into ethical hacking or pen testing, I think that knowledge is interesting because you can discover bugs, you can discover holes in software or application, but the developers still have to fix it, right? So if you just tell them, hey, there's a hole in your code, sometimes that is not enough, because then they will say, okay, how do I fix this then, right? Show me the code. So knowledge of both areas is important, right? So both pen testing to discover the bugs, but also fixing and coding securely. And to me, that's probably more important if you are an application developer.
Both.
Okay, and maybe one last picture. One last. Okay, this quick one. Okay. Durian, yeah. So Durian is Durian Security Conference. That's one of the security community event that we organize. We haven't done this for 3 years now, but there are communities like this in Malaysia. That's my point here. And I think even if you are in university, you are welcome to join some of these activities that are out there. And we had this one 3 years ago in UKM. Next one, last photo, I promise. So this is the first organization that I mentioned a bit. I was in a board of director from 2014 to 2019. And we actually had an event in Malaysia, a conference in Kuala Lumpur. And if you go to the website, first.org, you can also find slides, resources, training materials.
Yeah.
And and don't stop yourself from accessing all this wealth of information while you are in university.
Yeah, I think
So
we can
that's-
see from the
yeah.
website. We can see few big companies such as Cisco, Microsoft, who is
Yeah.
sponsor the epidemic program. And
That's right.
conference.
Yeah. And these are the people on the board. These are all the board members. They are all volunteers as well. Some of them work for Cisco, Juniper, Symantec, Google, and many other places. And everybody is I guess you will reach a stage in your life where you're like, okay, maybe there is more to than just work, right? There's more than just benefiting yourself. It's time to give back to the community, get new people into the industry, make sure that we have more security practitioners who can help secure the world in the future. So there is that aspect of this work as well. It's not just configuring firewall and fighting hackers every day, but there's this community aspect where we want to grow the community, get everybody to be as secure as everyone else.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we have one question. I think this is the last questions from Facebook viewer. Okay. So from Haris, I think, are you familiar with geospatial information system? I believe it's more relevant to geographic reference information. So how relevant can someone with business analytics can contribute more in this area? The area of the geospatial information system. So does the helps?
So yeah, I'm not an expert in this field, but I think this area is of utmost important and relevant these days because I think security is not just purely technical. It's a combination of different areas and different knowledge, and I'm sure it has value in the area of, for example, maybe investigation. That's one area that I can think of. I can also think of, there are many things where, when it comes to security, things are at a global scale. So we use as much information as possible as there is out there, and pull it in one place, or to build a puzzle out of all this information. So I will not discount any field or any knowledge, and to say that this is not important to security, right? As I have seen in the last couple of years, anything and everything becomes useful and relevant these days, especially if you are looking at things at the global scale or at a global level.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. And I think we have one more from Iqbal. So, what is the biggest challenge of university-industry collaboration from your perspective? The biggest challenge faced for university-industry collaboration, I think related to the cybersecurity. Okay. Some technical issue maybe. Yeah. Okay, please allow me for maybe a few seconds. Yeah.
All right. I think I got disconnected there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just answer. Is that the question from Iqbal? Okay. The biggest challenge, industry collaboration, it's hard to say really. Sometimes I find that there is a misconception between the two sides. One is that the industry thinks the university is just interested in the academics, the theory of things, but and then the industry, the academia may think the industry is is focusing more on anything that makes money. So their interests change very quickly, very dynamic. Today I'm interested in cloud computing. Tomorrow I'm interested in something else that makes me money. So it's hard, but I feel that there is a lot of opportunity for collaboration, and such session I think is one that is useful because it's experience sharing, right? I'm not here to teach you anything really, but if you have maybe specific things that you want to learn, we can do it afterwards. We can follow up, and I feel that the relationship can be better if you do more than just series of engagement, which means that maybe there could be some follow-ups. It doesn't have to be formal, it could be very informal, that okay, so now maybe from this session there is 10 of you who are interested to learn more about something specific, then we can take it on the side. We can maybe have some sessions elsewhere and connect on social media or something like that. So I definitely see value in this collaboration, but it has also to be very practical, I think, and something that maybe achieves a goal, and it doesn't have to be a very high goal of maybe developing patents or anything like that, but just getting people to share information and share ideas more with one another.
Yes. Maybe if you can allow one more last questions, I think. Do you think that cybersecurity fundamental is important to all, not only for cybersecurity community? So is it good to expose to all university students, especially our computer science students, as general subject to all?
Yeah, definitely. I think everybody should have this awareness of what cybersecurity is and what their roles and responsibilities are in security, because they are a link that can be exploited or can be taken advantage of to reach the goals, for the cyber criminals to reach their goals, right? So maybe you have secure your network, everything is fine, but I can maybe trick someone into giving out this information without even breaking into something. So this knowledge is very important to me, and it's practical knowledge. It's maybe as important as how to use Microsoft Word to write a document these days. What the threats are, how can you help secure organization that you work with, how can you secure your own organization and not get involved in risky activities, like downloading software from the internet, and not having the protection in place when you use a computer. So giving people who are in technology or who are not in technology, that understanding to me is of utmost important. And there's a lot of resources actually out there that can be used for this. It doesn't have to be a formal course even, I think. There's still a lot of materials that we can.
Because I think all domain require security in their fields, right?
Yes, absolutely. Even if a Facebook user, everybody here use Facebook probably, and someone who uses Facebook, but not everybody is doing the best practice when it comes to, for example, Facebook security. One is the multi-factor authentication, right? Where you have an additional way to authenticate yourself in addition to username and password. And why is this important? Because we have seen every now and then username and password get compromised, get stolen, can be guessed, right? So your first and lines of defense is only your password. And in security, sometimes we live with the assumption that these things will be stolen one day, will be compromised. So how do I then increase my security? Well, I use two-factor authentication. So if we teach this to everyone who is using Facebook, I think it makes hacking accounts, by criminals more difficult, because they will get your username and password somehow, or they can guess it, but they will still need the other factor. So I feel that this knowledge is not technical knowledge, or not just for technical people. Everybody should be aware of this.
It's for general.
It's for general, and it helps them to secure information that they share on social media.
Okay. So I think we already 11:05. I think that is the end of our conversation today. So please allow me to summarize our discussion today. So as a conclusion for our session this morning. So to become a security specialist, not only we earn appropriate related degree in a related field, for example, like IT, cybersecurity, IS, and so on. But the most important thing also is to gaining equivalent experience with other relevant industry, training, exercise, certifications, and also others is also important. And then besides that, knowledge or skill required for security related job is also important. For example, like the ability to problem solving skills, technical aptitude, knowledge of security across various platforms. Okay, communication skills is also important for security specialists, and also the fundamentals of computer forensic skills, I think, hacking, and also the most important thing, I think you mentioned quite a lot, about the desire to learn a new things. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, may I thank for your participations in our seminar today, and I hope you enjoy the program. And to Mr. Adli, thank you so much for your time this morning, so I look forward for your participations in future seminars for other viewers. So thank you very much, Mr. Adli. Assalamualaikum and bye bye.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, everybody.
So much. Assalamualaikum.